Now we get to people, sorry about the hair, but the wind's blowing today. We're going to get to people who tell you things that are designed to get you to shut up because you're ruining their memes. Oh, not again. Why are you so concerned? If it's a lie, nothing happens. Counterpoint. People lying about the end of the world have caused suicides. People spreading lies should be countered. Why do you want to let lies be done? This is like people saying, hey man, don't be a hater just because someone's saying something that isn't true. Bearing false witness is actually a sin in some religions, but a lot of these people claim to follow. TEPCO said 5 men was contaminated with high levels of radiation. Do you still think they're alive? Okay, here we go. It was 2013, and it was 6 TEPCO workers who were wearing protective clothing and masks that were contaminated with beta form, not gamma ray, 37 million barracouls per liter maximum water. 30 million, 37 million, let's call it 40 million. Japan's nuclear watchdog organization said they did not believe the workers were subject to anything troubling or serious. And you're the one saying, well, do you think they survived? You're just asking questions. You said 5, it was actually 6, people were contaminated. Are you talking about some other 5 or 6? Because I looked up contaminated TEPCO workers. You said TEPCO said 5 men was contaminated with high levels of radiation. And then you ask us if the persons are alive. The answer is yes, because they weren't reported to have died. Every worker who works at TEPCO, anywhere, any location, anybody who's even walked into the building who dies, you people will jump on. But you can't list who died, because you're a conspiracy theorist and a fearmonger, but you don't know how many have died. The answer is apparently either 1 or 0 from anything from Fukushima. Again, you ignore the deaths caused by an earthquake and flooding and thousands of people dying, and thousands later, actually, almost 1,000, excuse me, who were evacuated, who died from literally the stress induced by it, or having to be moved out of the area to avoid radiation when they were in a hospital, who ended up dying from the treatment being interrupted. There are more deaths caused by things having nothing to do with the radiation by a bizarrely huge number and scale compared to anybody dying. You're the assholes who keep saying millions have died. Show us the numbers and where. And stop lying about thyroid disease. 30% rise in thyroid cancer in children. I like how you just sort of drive by that. So what's the actual number? 30% increase in pediatric thyroid cancers caused by Fukushima would be the claim. The day after the meltdown, Japanese authorities evacuated some 150,000 people living within 20 kilometers of the plant. Alright? Japan's authorities set out to screen the thyroids of all of the 368,651 residents who were under 18 at the time that they could find in the area in the Fukushima prefecture. Not just the ones within 20 kilometers. They evacuated and or tested literally everybody because they were paranoid about it. And they used much more finer, much better screening methods that would detect anything technically cancer-like. By 2015, it showed that nearly 50% of the 300,000 some odd people had solid nodules or fluid-filled nodules. These are called cysts, 5 millimeters across or so, on their thyroids. That's a 30-fold increase, but nobody had cancers. 0 had cancers. Because of course, oh no, they're not going to test to see if they didn't have cancers. They did not have thyroid cancer. You're reporting the initial test which showed nodules, using a newer, higher resolution screening method that you usually have to pay extra for because of a very simple thing about thyroid cancer that all of you Fukushima fucktards do not want to talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, the real hidden truth about thyroid cancer. It's nearly impossible to get, and it's virtually impossible to die from, even while untreated, because if you're calling these thyroid cancers when they were diagnosed later to not have cancer, what they had were nodules, growths, The thyroid is a very active area, and it's more than one gland there, by the way. It's not the thyroid. There's lots of glands there that are considered part of the thyroid array, or whatever you want to call it. Oh, we don't want to talk about details? Details! Fake news. Slap my hand. And you know how you treat thyroid cancer? Because it almost never gets out of the thyroid, you remove that thyroid gland. You have others. Do thyroid glands grow back? Are you going to look it up or just post below? It was done using advanced ultrasound devices that could detect smaller things that could be precancerous or non-cancerous materials and not distinguish between them for that specific survey. So it did not match normal results you get from every other previous survey because it didn't. It did match one other survey, but let's talk about that too. It detected otherwise unnoticeable growths and compared the results found by traditional clinical examinations of patients who have lumps or symptoms. Actually, no, it didn't. It didn't compare it to that. And again, no cancers were detected. They literally found none. Half the people showed signs of something that could look like cancer, and then they went through and checked them by needle aspiration, jamming needles into their neck and tissue samples, and they found almost no cancers. Eventually, some of them actually showed up as thyroid cancer, so they just removed that section of the thyroid or the entire thyroid, and they were cured. Because you have more than one nodule there. Ultrasonographic detection for thyroid nodules and cysts are extremely common and can be found at a frequency of 67% in normal studies. Now, let me explain that to you. They did the same study to people downwind of Fukushima and got 50% results this way. But the normal is 67, which means they had a lower incidence of freaking nodules. Yeah, it had a lower incidence. And then when they compared it to the rest of Japan, yes, this is the result. In the rest of Japan, the rate of positive detection of these nodules was 70%. So literally being in the pathway of Fukushima gave you a 50-50 shot when it would normally be higher of having these responses. You don't report that because you're all a bunch of lying shits. Studies elsewhere hinted that a tiny thyroid cysts and nodules were common for all ages. 4,300 children aged 3 to 18 tested from 3 widely separated prefectures showed a similar set of numbers. Only one cancer outside of Fukushima prefecture. The prevalence was at 230 cancers per million people, just the same as Fukushima. Oh no, actually it was only 220 in Fukushima prefecture because it had a lower incidence of what you're calling thyroid cancer explosion. It's called the screening effect. When you do a better job looking at things, you find more stuff, and then you find out, oh. Well, anyway, Fukushima prefecture as a whole, 2013, 15 suspected and 12 confirmed thyroid cancers in people. Again, they had a lower incidence of things you could detect to be cancerous. But hey, they were able to find it. And you know what happened? Well, the death rate. No death rate. They removed the thyroid cancers. It's a 3% failure rate. You die at a 3% rate. Maybe. You can do a secondary removal and it's 3% of that. So it's very hard to die from it. 137 thyroid detections of abnormalities by 2015. Now they're just bullshitting us. And then finally, 2018, one source claimed thyroid cancer in 160 kids in 2018, but wouldn't cite their source. And again, the thing you're actually citing showed a lower prevalence of these detections. If caught early, thyroid cancer is almost always cured by removing one of the thyroid glands at a 94% survival rate. Of all thyroid nodules discovered, only about 5% are ever cancerous, and some are not actually metastasizing. So you literally get lower than that. 3% of the results are result in fatalities, and that's for gross examples of people refusing treatment for some blasted reason or unable to receive it. If you receive cancer screenings and treatment, the success rate is much higher. It's almost non-existent. Virtually all thyroid glands thyroid growths are benign growths and will never cause symptoms, illness, or death, even if nothing is ever done about the growth. And this detected ones that nobody had any complaints about. They weren't aware they had them. And again, initially, none were cancerous. Later on, one. Outside of Fukushima. In 1999, coincidentally, South Korea introduced advanced ultrasound thyroid examinations. This resulted in an explosion of the rate of benign cancers, growths, being detected. Needless surgeries occurred, and a few people died from it that wouldn't have died ever in their life from anything associated with the thyroid at all, because surgical infection or it affecting some other thing in their body. And one incident was completely benign cysts that were removed, but damaged one of them, and it became a highly active cancer, not in the thyroid, but in the lung. So they forced it to metastasize by accident, by overdoing it. It's an actual occurrence. There's only one or two out of thousands, but there's an actual thing that can happen if you do surgery on somebody who has benign tumors that can cause them to not be benign. That's why you're supposed to do this by managing the situation. The thyroid is almost impossible to die from cancer from. It still happens. If you get regular exams or if you have any symptoms, as soon as you're symptomatic, they can take care of it. Even then, you have a high rate of success. And that's where the 3% number comes from of deaths. If you get it examined and removed before it becomes symptomatic, but it's larger than 5 millimeters, you're not going to die from it mostly. Why do Fukushima fearmongers concentrate on thyroid cancer? Because of radioactive iodine. Well, where's the death rate? It's a lower incidence downwind of the damn thing. Anyway, in 2013, 6 TEPCO workers were wearing protective clothing and masks and were contaminated with beta form gamma rays at 3,700 million barrels per liter maximum in water. Japan's nuclear watchdog group says they were not damaged. Very unlikely for them to be damaged. I'm just going to reset that. Let's get on with the next one, that 30% cancer rise in children. The citizens of Japan are fighting government to get news out and information on and they're being arrested. They're not getting arrested in Japan unless they're activists that go off and try to literally sabotage a nuclear power plant, literally causing a nuclear accident. But that actually did happen. Some activists showed up and were threatening to cause a nuclear accident so they could prove a point. Anyway, Chris Busby got his results confiscated. That's not what he said. Helen Caldicott has sued the media for calling her a liar. Now she's invited to speak at more places. Okay, let's cover that. Australian former physician, activist Helen Caldicott, with 21 honorary doctoral degrees, left her medical career following 3 Mile Island nuclear accident because she read a 1957 novel about a Holocaust in Australia and nukes. She's damaged her own case by providing an account that is anything but objective. As far as she's concerned, the entire industry and all its supporters are evil. She's been discredited. Russia Today's chemical weapons expert and professional fearmonger, Fukushima fearmonger, who may not understand how to use a radiation counter, Dr. Chris Busby, was in custody for 19 hours for innocuous chemicals for research into radiation in his house that became suspicious, and he began to scream like an activist. He has not claimed his research data was taken. Why are you claiming that? Both of those two sow confusion about radiation risks. But yes, the Australian physician Helen Caldicott has been called a liar by some people and in the media. The trouble is she got caught literally just sandbagging any kind of real discussion on this subject. And yeah, she gets called to groups who are populists who want to talk about this stuff, but they won't go out with a freaking Geiger counter or gamma ray meter to find out if there's really any contamination, because that would be fact-based and they got to avoid that shit. She sued the media. Did she win? Usually they don't. She's now invited to speak at more places, but she's not a doctor anymore. She really isn't anymore, is she? Maybe she is. I don't know. Why don't you ask her? Why don't you ask this guy if he really had his research taken from him? He didn't say that. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.